and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight we have Liam and Sean. How are you, Liam?
Yep, good, thanks, Jared. It's pretty cold up here in Japan, and hello to anybody who hasn't heard us before on this weekend event. Great pleasure to be here for a great cause, and looking forward to having some good Celtic chat.
And how are you, Sean?
Yeah, I was sweating my nips off today. I was out it's in the mid-30s here. I was out at the park with my daughter at a Perth Celtic Supporters Club event. They had the sausage sizzle on, as they call it over here. So it was a good day, yeah.
Yeah, there was some nice pictures put up in their CSC's Facebook group, so if anyone wants to check that out, have a look at the Perth Celtic Supporters Group Club on Facebook. Good cause that everyone out there. And talk about a good cause, this Charity Weekender, raising money for St Mary's. Thanks again to Paul and the ACSOM team for having us on. It's the second year in a row, and happy to be on and do our part. So if you haven't donated and you can, please do so. So what we'll do is there's been, since our last podcast, so we normally record, for those who haven't listened in, as Liam touched on, we normally have a podcast out pretty much every Wednesday. So what we skipped that so that we could put this week's podcast today. So since our last pod, there was a Celtic played by Leverkusen, had a 3-2 loss. We had a 2-1 win against Aberdeen, and then we had a 1-0 win against Hearts. So we won't really touch on Leverkusen and the Aberdeen result because pretty much everyone's done that to death already. So we'll talk about the Hearts game. So, Sean, do you want to give your rundown on the 1-0 win against Hearts? Point out anything that you found interesting or saw from the game, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, lots of things. Obviously, the 3 points is outstanding. The crowd sounded quite good. They sounded like they were really engaged in it and recognised the importance of it. You know, second versus third. We're with us sitting in third before the game, so we've taken that step on Hearts now. Hearts were doing the usual shite, putting the boot in early. Bobby Madden letting them away with it. Usual gamesmanship crap as well. Stuff like Robbie Nielsen kicking the ball away from stoppers taking a quick throw in, all that sort of thing. But something that stood out early in the game was that we were absolutely frantic. Like the players were at stupid pace. Like I wasn't even watching the Celtic TV broadcast. I was watching the KO one, which I think comes off Sky. And like they couldn't even get the replays in. Like they were cutting to a replay and then cutting off before they even got to it because Celtic were taking the corners so quickly or throwing so quickly. So it kind of felt almost inevitable that somebody was going to pull a hamstring. And yeah, there was Jota going off at the same time as Stephen Welsh, putting us down to why is Nir Beaton coming on at centre back and not Liam Scales? I don't know, but that's what it is. And I think our two centre backs are actually having a great game defence wise. But one thing that still drives me nuts is having Starfelt, who cannot use his left foot in any way, shape, or form, over on the left of the two centre backs. Like it just slows the game down in possession. Like seriously slows it down. Yeah, a few more things. Do you guys want to come in before I go on to those?
No, I was just going to say that it was a good win in a difficult circumstance. That taking the Hearts game and the Aberdeen game together, I really like the fact that Celtic are in a position now where we can not play particularly well and still get the win, which is a big step up from last season when I reckon we would have either drawn or lost possibly both of those games at this point last season. The progress is clearly there to see that Ange has got us playing really fantastic football, but he's also got us grinding out results where we have to as well. And you need both of those elements to win a championship.
Well, touching on what you just said there, Liam, and what Sean said earlier, was frantic pace early, but we got that goal. And then you're saying Ange's team's grinding out results. The game slowed down in the second half. So to me, that's a perfect summary of what the two of you have just said there. It was flat out early on, but then it would slow down. And Sean, where you said, why did Bitton come on instead of Scales? Well, Scales was on the bench. So there's your answer.
No, I mean, why is Scales not on the bench, I guess, is the extension of that question.
Exactly. But yeah, it was a weird game for me. Like I thought it was I wasn't sure if I was watching football or rugby, but didn't expect any different there. Anyone who listened to the after-match live one from Paul and Laura on ACSOM channel, they would have seen Paul. He made a really good point about it's not a conspiracy, it's actually poor refereeing.
Yeah.
The fact that there was so many fouls, and it was the same in the Livingston game where we have so much possession, the foul count is all over the place, and they get the only booking of the game I think was Montgomery off the top of my head if I remember right.
Yeah,
that was 7 fouls to half time. Like that was absolutely shambolic refereeing. But yeah, back to what you had a few more things you wanted to say, Sean?
Yeah, talking about the bookings, there was one where the boy went through the back of God, who even was it? Was it Juranovic? I can't remember now. But it's like a slide tackle from behind, and it's like, yep, just free kick.
Just to talk them to.
And then like we were actually a little bit lucky to not concede a goal in the second half. Yeah, they should have scored from that free header. That was the one standout piece of poor defending in the whole game. Was that guy just got a free run, Stephen Kingsley, and then just fluffed it. And then the one where Montgomery gets fouled and they almost score in the counter-attack, that was the worst decision of all from the referee. But I actually felt like even the goal, I thought it was offside. I don't know what you guys thought.
First look, I agree with you. Second and third look, I still thought it was offside, but there was enough seed of doubt there in that depends on the camera angle. If you had VAR set up like a lot of people are talking about, where they have cameras on the posts, they have cameras in the corners, they have them along the sideline. If they had that and they were able to look at the one from the corner, it'll look onside by a mile. So it all depends on camera angle.
Yeah, but you've also got the lines on the pitch. But yeah, I felt like even before that goal, there was a couple of marginal ones that the linesman hadn't flagged. So I actually felt we were getting the benefit of the doubt before that, which is interesting because we've got Kyogo, who's always playing they're playing, that's the system we're playing. And the reason why Robbie Keane left and didn't come back was because he was getting flagged for them. So it's like...
That's the Andrews system. The striker's always offside. They get offside behind the centre-backs, the ball goes wide. Then if the winger or the fullback in this instance cuts the ball back, plays him back onside, there's no defenders there to stop him tapping it in. The guy Bessart Barisha in the A-League made a career out of that at Brisbane Roar under Ange. So exactly what we're seeing now, except Kyogo's a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see us go to the system that they do in most major leagues now, which is the officials let it play out and then and then they'll flag it or go to VAR or whatever at that point.
It's obvious they flag it, but if it's touch and go, they'll play the advantage, see what happens, and then they'll go and review it.
They pretty much let everything go now, as far as it is, unless it's like literally meters. Like if there's clear daylight, they'll flag it, but otherwise, like they let a lot go now, even if it seems really obvious. What was the game I was watching? I can't remember now, but I was like, the guy was like, there wasn't clear daylight, but he was pretty clearly offside, and they let it play out. I was like, yeah.
The funny thing, Sean, though, is it gives us guys on podcasts and people in the office around the water cooler, it gives them something to talk about. That's the one thing with football that referees and the decisions that your team gets and doesn't get has always been there. That's the one thing. And even VAR doesn't change that because we've got it over here in Australia in the A-League. And the VAR over here, it doesn't matter that you've got it. It's how it's implemented. And if you've got incompetent referees on the pitch and up in the VAR box reviewing things like you currently have at the moment, then it's not going to make much difference. If you've got Bobby Madden on the pitch, but then you've got, I don't know, Willie Collum in the box, for instance, how do you think that's going to play out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I've always said about VAR, which, I've had, debates with people about this online, particularly amongst Scottish football fans where we don't have VAR yet. It's not this magical silver bullet that's going to cure depending on whether you perceive it as incompetence or corruption amongst referees in Scotland. I personally think it might be a bit of both, but The fact is, if they are still adjudicating that, they're the ones that decide when do you consult VAR. They're the ones on the VAR monitors. The problem is the people. It's not the technology. Giving those same people new technology is not going to make them any more competent. You know, if I'm computer illiterate, giving me a brand new Mac isn't going to suddenly make me magically computer literate, you know? And if you're a bad referee, giving you a VAR screen is not going to make you a better referee.
I just want to touch on something Cal said in the comments where they've gone, shows you how far behind Scottish football is when the Australian League has VAR before us. Now,
we've had it for ages.
Comment, Australia was actually the test league from FIFA for VAR. So we actually had it before it was even rolled out anywhere. So we've had VAR over here now, I think, for a good 5 years plus. So
somewhat like
yeah, so it's interesting just to see the way it's evolved and everything. The first 2 years it was out here, it was an absolute nightmare. So if Scotland had the same system that we had when it was first implemented here in Australia, I'd rather keep the status quo.
Yeah, we were definitely ironing out the kinks there, weren't we, down here?
Oh, useless.
I mean, that's the other thing about it, though. Is like it's inevitably going to come to Scottish football. It's a question of when. But I actually kind of like the fact that, you know, in England for about the first 18 months, fans were complaining about it every week. But now that it's been streamlined and refined, it's actually a much better, smoother, less disruptive process.
And people are used to it now, Liam, too.
Aye, and you get used to it. And I think that we're not going to get, you know, Scotland isn't going to get the same VAR that Australia got 5 years ago. We're going to get this, hopefully, the refined VAR that's now operating in most of the major European leagues.
I think whenever Sevco have a game with VAR, they'll probably have like a audio-visual technician up there so that they can be doctoring footage and live for the...
Kevin Graham said in the comments, in Scotland it'll be visual assistance for Rangers. Great call, Kevin. Love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no...
so anything...
Sorry, yeah. I was just going to call back to the first Hearts game. I actually rewatched it, the highlights, and a couple of things that jumped out at me was if you get a chance, you should go back and watch it. The one we lost at Tynecastle in July. The goal we conceded at the start to go 1-0 down is, it is unrecognisable from the team that we see just now. And that was the biggest thing to me. It was like, wait, how many months ago was this? This is like a different team, and it was like 4 months ago or whatever. Like, I can't even. Honestly, you need to watch it. But then
you actually touched on what I was going to say next anyway there, but keep going. And
and anyway, the other thing I was going to say is if you're in a VAR system, then we go 2-1 up in that game. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
And then and Robbie Nielsen didn't come out after the game and credit the officials with his victory for that game.
So two things on there. First thing, Robbie Nelson at his age with that haircut, mate, just give it a rest. Second of all, yeah, you're spot on there. It's like we had one taken off us that was onside. We had one that could have been offside given for us this one. Swings and roundabouts, basically. It's the end of the day, it's evened out. So I look at it and go, whatever. It all plays out, they say, over the course of a season. That's the first time in my life being a Celtic fan I can remember it actually has played out in the same season. So
yeah, exactly.
But what we were saying before, Sean, where you were saying about if you watch the first Hearts game, comparing it to now, I was on the Friday bulletin with ACSOM, not this Friday, last week, and it's something that me, Tony and Laura discussed on there was how do we think Angie's team is compared to where I thought it would be? And I said we're ahead of schedule. Like what I thought, the way we're playing now is what I probably would have expected to see maybe in April. That's where I think in terms of the way we're going forward, attacking, and the way that it's all played out. We still need to strengthen the back line and get maybe another defensive midfielder in, another striker as well. But that's going to play out over time and over transfer windows. But as you were saying, Sean, watch the first Hearts game to this one, and it ties in perfect with that. I think we're ahead of schedule, and I'm happy to say that.
Yeah, I when Ange came in, my biggest worry was that he wouldn't be given time to get the results needed to satisfy the wider support. But if you'd have said to me after that Hearts game in July, okay, we're going to get to December and we're only going to be 4 points behind Rangers and we'll have played some really good football, I'd be like, aye, I'll take that. I'll take that. And we're going to finish third in a very tough European group with 3 teams that were all, probably at the start of the season we're not expected to beat. I think, considering he's only had one window to bring in his own players and shape his own team, the transformation is incredible. It really is.
Did you see he called out Mikey and Abada specifically yesterday?
All right. No, I didn't see that.
So is everyone else in the comments, mate.
No, I meant Andrew Postecoglou. He called.
I know what you meant. I was just having a laugh there, Sean.
He specifically called those two out, saying like, "Oh, well, this is why they're here. They're here to play games, so they need to step up, and this is their chance when they get it."
I agree with him on that. Like, Mike, let's be honest with Mikey. If he was offered Hibs, tearing the league up, doing well, doing what Martin Boyle's doing, right? Or even giving us those 20-minute bursts in the same way Doig did last season there, we'd be linked to him. It'd be like, oh, he's one of the best up-and-coming young talents in Scotland. Celtic, when's he going to be at Celtic or Rangers? That's what we've seen. I've seen it my whole life. But because he's one of our young kids coming through, everyone's on his back. But he's at that age now. Yes, he's had injuries, but the time is now. He's got to step it up. Because otherwise, he's basically teetering at the same place in Ronnie's last year where Jamesy Forrest was. Where if he left the club at that point, a lot of fans would have been like, oh, well, we're not going to miss Forrest, but look what he's gone on and done for us the last 5 years. So I think Mikey's at that same crossroads at the moment. He needs a run of games, but he's got to do something.
Where Ralston was 6 months ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't think anyone doubts that Mikey Johnson's got talent. But there's more to football than talent, isn't there? The best kind of ability is availability. And,
Well, let's be honest. Lewis Morgan had talent, but he didn't do it in the Celtic shirt. He did it at St Mirren. He did it at Sunderland. Didn't do it with us. He's doing it in America. Players have got their level. Where's Mikey's level? He needs a few games for us to give him a run of games, especially with Jota out. He's going to have to step it up. But at the same time, is this his level? Can he cut it at Celtic? Now is the time to make a stand and prove his spot.
And even if he moves on, he's like a £3 million player. So for someone that you paid nothing for, the academy producing players worth millions of pounds is like, if you're St Mirren, you're saying that's, you're absolutely buzzing about that. So, even if these players are not going to be ripping the league up, you still want to be producing players that are going to do something at some level and bring something back to the academy financially.
That is one thing Ange is good at. He does bring through players. So I'm looking at it going, there's so many young guys in the squad at the moment that, okay, they may not be starters now, but if over the next few years, is Welsh going to cut it? Is Mikey going to cut it? It's gone mental blank here. There's a couple other defenders. Monty. Who was the other young centre-back that played against Midtjylland? I've gone blank.
Dane Murray.
Dane Murray, that's the one. Are these guys going to progress over the next few years? Now, if Andrew's at the club 3-4 years' time still, which I'm hoping he is, and things are going great, and we're like, on our way to 3 or 4 in a row or whatever we are at that point. If we get to that point, these guys need to be either regulars or have gone out on loan a few things, doing the Ryan Christie path to come back and be ready to jump straight in and not lock themselves down a spot.
Yeah, Dane Murray needs a year at Falkirk or Kilmarnock and then a year at Aberdeen, and then that's surely he's got to be first team ready after that. I mean, the guy's a Scotland's under-21 international, so...
Yeah, I mean, particularly the case of Mikey Johnson, if we do sign one of the Japanese players that we've been linked with, which we'll come to in a wee minute, he is, in my opinion, just a better version of Mikey Johnson. So I think Johnson's time's up if we sign the player in question.
What about age? Age for age, is he better?
Well, how old's Johnson now?
23, I believe. 22.
Right. Well, Maeda's 24, so there's nothing in it really.
There you go then. Okay, that answers that question.
Aye.
So then we'll jump to that now, Liam. Then, so we had on the run sheet we had Dazen Maeda. The latest update is apparently it's going to be about a £3 million transfer.
Yeah.
And also Rio Hatate transfer is pretty much done according to all reports. I've seen the figure for him at about 2 million listed.
Yeah.
2.5 million. What are you seeing over in Japan? Because that's where you're based. So that's a man in Japan. What do you got on the go?
Right. Okay. It's interesting because looking at where Celtic need to strengthen at the moment, I think Hatate is a more useful player for us. But Maeda, having seen him in the flesh, because he used to play for my local team over here, is a guy that excites me more as a player. He's more of a, if you want to use the cliche, a guy who plays the Celtic way, you know. Hatate, left-sided, has played left-back for most of this season in winning the league with Kawasaki Frontale. Although that's not his natural position. He's naturally a midfielder. But he has done really well at left-back. So we can put him in at left-back. We can put him in. He could also play that defensive midfield role that we were talking about. He's actually quite good going forward as well when he wants to. He's very versatile, and I think versatility is something that we need a lot of, because we don't have that many players at the moment who can switch. I mean, Beaton is the only one really who's played multiple positions this season, and we know he's not a central defender; he never will be. But he tries his best, you know. But so Hatate is going to be probably a more beneficial acquisition, but I think Maeda is the one that would get fans more excited. He is, he can play centre forward, he can play left wing, right wing. When I saw him play, he played for quite a small team here called Matsumoto Yamaga, who are now, actually just last week, got relegated to the 3rd division in Japan. They were in the top league when I saw Maeda play for them 2 years ago. And pretty much after he left, everything imploded and they got relegated, and then they got relegated again. So
they've done a Sunderland. But the one thing about him, what uniform did he wear there?
At that time, Matsumoto's home jersey was the green and white hoops. And Maeda looks good in them, I'll tell you that much.
One thing that you're talking about there that's interesting is talking about Hatate playing out of position. And was you say Maeda plays everywhere as well? Interesting parallel with Kyogo, who was playing, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe he was playing left wing for Yokohama. For
Vissel Kobe, yeah.
Kobe. But despite playing left wing and all his YouTube highlights being left wing, Postecoglou actually identified him as a striker and signed him and put him up front. Notwithstanding Ibrox. It's interesting parallel. It's something of a common trait amongst a lot of Japanese footballers, Japanese athletes in general. Actually, is like something that's really drilled into you from a very young age. Because I work in public schools in Japan, so I see how kids are taught, sports and other subjects, and versatility is something that they put into you from a very young age. It's like you play wherever the team needs you to play. It's not about you; it's about the team. And so a lot of these Japanese players, they actually get recruited into the J League teams directly from high school. They go from high school directly into the teams. It's like a sort of a feeder system. And usually they carry forward that idea of like, okay, I'm not just a left winger. Sometimes I've got to be a left back. Sometimes I've got to be centre mid. Sometimes I've got to be a striker. It's wherever the team needs me this week. And Maeda embodies that, Kyogo embodies that, and Hatate especially embodies that. So, and I totally agree. I guess to part B of the point there was that I'm also praising Ange for being able to recognise a player's actual strongest position, even when they're not playing there. And like some of the talk is about Hatate coming in as a centre mid, and look at how well Near Bitton's done in the last 6 weeks. After he's been shunted forward and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I actually don't mind to see on at central mid because of his height. Like the one concern I've got with Hatate coming in if he's a defensive midfielder and plays in the 6 role is his height. Like I've been saying for ages, look at us against your Aberdeens and particularly against Rangers. We seem really small and light on in the middle of the park. So if we're going to get a defensive midfielder, I actually would like a Victor Wanyama type, someone who's a bit more stockier and filled out or a bit taller. But if Hatate can do the job there, I'm still happy for him to come in. But what are you going to say, Liam?
My response, well, I'll come back to what I was going to say in a second, but my response to that would just be, well, how tall is Scott Brown? Sorry, I'm being a bit facetious there, but
basically, or
aye. If you've got the ability, I don't think height is as big an issue as it used to be, or as big an obstacle as it used to be. And the way Japanese football has progressed, and the way you see Japan competing when they play at the World Cup now, it shows you that the fact that they are physically smaller than Europeans most of the time doesn't actually hold them back to the extent that it used to. But what I was going to say to comment on what you said, Sean, about Ange picking out Kyogo as a centre forward despite him not playing centre forward, I am really intrigued to see if we do sign Maeda and Hatate, to see where they are deployed and where they fit, because obviously Ange knows something I don't, but I'm at a bit of a loss as to how Kyogo and Maeda are going to play in the same team because they're very, very similar players.
Well, I've got something in front of me here, Liam, which I saw online. I can't remember. I think it was one of the red tops. Don't come at me in the comments, everyone. But it was how Celtic could line up with Hatate and Maeda. And the lineup they gave us was Joe Hart in goals, Juranovic at right back, Carter Vickers, Julian if he's back, otherwise Starfelt at left back, Hatate, left centre back, and then Hatate at left back. Midfield of Rogic, Turnbull, McGregor, Jota playing left, Kyogo in the middle, Maeda out right on the right. Now that's how they've said it. And if you're going to do that, Jota and Maeda can just switch wings and go the old Neil Lennon tactic, switch the wingers, and it would work anyway because everyone's versatile up the front. But that's what they're showing online as a possible. Now
so we're saying Forrest is bombed out.
Forrest is out, and so is Ralston.
But yeah, look, on those two setters that Forrest missed at the weekend, can you imagine if that had been Leila Bada missing those two? He would have got it tight. Yeah, he would have got it tight. But yeah, so Forrest has struggled to come back into the team. But I think, look at the goal he scored in the semi-final. Could you really have Forrest out of the team? I'm not sure.
I think Forrest, just my opinion, I think Forrest is a good guy to have on the bench. I think he's a good impact player.
All right, we're talking about the injuries and everything early on, right? And players dropping out now and guys coming back in and all that sort of stuff. And you look at our bench against Hearts, for instance, right? And just getting that up now. Our bench, Bitton, a Yeti, a Bada, McCarthy, Johnson, Bain, Montgomery. So I look at that and go, all right, if you've got, I'll say, a Bada on the bench and you've got Forrest on the bench, or if you've got Maeda on the bench, or you've got options. Realistically, a Jetty would then drop out of the squad. Great, fine, that's good. But then it would at least give us some options and game changers off the bench, which is what we don't really have at the moment, especially with the current injuries. Jota goes out, you start Mikey. What options do you have? Who's going to come off the bench and change things for you?
Yeah. I don't know. We don't have much. I guess the answer is there's no one. Yeah, man. And look, there are two of our best players this year, both not even our players. They're both loan players, so that's also a concern. And some of the numbers that are getting bounced about say that it's going to be the vast majority of our transfer budget. Try to get those two to stay.
Well, you've just touched on the next topic I was going to throw to there, Sean. It's a perfect little segue. Good job. So, yeah, Cameron Carter-Vickers. It said that he's He's said that he's keen on a permanent transfer to Celtic. All along, the talk was, $1 million, $1.5 million, maybe $2 million. And all of a sudden, it comes out that it's a £10 million transfer, which is more than our club record. Are you having a laugh? Like,
Where did that come from?
I don't know. It was reported everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know how they... It's so random. Like, how were they so wrong before or now? Which one was...
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
I look at it and go, $6.5 million for Jota. Great. Okay, do it. Because if we got the option, sign him up, and even if we do a Jack Hendry, sign him and flip him and sell him for 13, 14 million to one of those other clubs that's apparently rumoured to like him. It's great business for the club, as much as I'd want him to stay. But 10 million for Carter Vickers, he's 23 or something like that. You'd have him for a few years, but I think he's good in our league in Europe. There's still question marks there for him. And I wouldn't spend 10 million on him. Like, if we're paying 6 million for him, and then with add-ons based on performances, league titles, number of appearances, all that sort of stuff, it eventually got up to 10. Fine, I could consider that. But when we're talking about Maeda for 3 million, Hatate for 2 million, why would you spend 10 million on a centre back? I'm sure you could go and get Ko Itakura, who's on loan this season's out of contract from Man City at the end of the season. You can get him on a free, and he's a left-sided centre back. I know you're a fan of that idea, Liam, but I wouldn't spend 10 million on Carter Vickers if you can fix the problem of balance in our centre backs. Get Itakura in, join our Japanese crew over in the east end of Glasgow, and then you can move Starfelt over to the right centre back spot, which fixes your concern, Sean. So there's options there, but to 10 million, nah.
See, the thing about this 10 million thing, right? Now, I'm just going to... This is just my take on it. I could be completely wrong, but when I used to work with the newspapers, the way it would work is that a player would come out and say he's interested in a permanent move, and then a day or two later, the totally outrageous figure comes out because the club now know that there's a potential for a deal to be done there, right? And I think that's what this is. I think Carter Vickers is being genuine when he says, like, he loves being at Celtic and would like to make a permanent move. I can understand it, and I'd love to have him. I think he's been a good addition.
Yeah,
but I don't love him to the extent that I'd give 10 million for him.
Exactly.
But I think the 10 million figure is just that is just wild. Like, you know, look, he's not worth 10 million. How about 5 million? Then like, no, we want 7, and it will start a kind of bidding war. We'll probably end up, if we do sign him, it'll probably be for something about 3 or 4 million, I would guess.
I've got a weird theory on this, Liam. You want to know what it is?
What's that?
Suddenly, if Carter Vickers is worth £10 million, that number's being thrown around so the papers can then report that Connor Goldson's going to be sold for the same money. That's what my theory is on it.
I think that's not a wild theory.
Do you know, that actually, knowing the way the Scottish press works, that absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
So here's a quick question. Say Carter Vickers was our player, right? Whether we signed him from Hibs or through the academy, whatever. Say he was our player, putting in these performances, and Bournemouth or whoever come in for him in January or at the end of the season. How much would you be thinking he's worth going in the other direction?
I'd say Julian money, 6-7 million.
Honestly, would you not be saying north of 10?
You know why I'm saying that? Because I'm being realistic and knowing off the back of COVID, where there's been a lot of clubs don't have money. That's what we'd get. We'd get, realistically, depends on the length of his contract, first of all, but the age profile. If he had 1 or 2 years left on his deal, we'd probably only get Stewie Armstrong money. That's it.
Because honestly, I'd be saying 11, 12. That's what I'd be saying. So I agree with you that 10 is outside our price range, but if it was in another direction, I'd be saying more than 10. So, yeah. And look, the guy's no use to Tottenham. He's not going to get a game for Tottenham, so that's what makes the difference here, is he's a more valuable player to us than he is to Tottenham. But, yeah. And on the subject of Jota, one of my friends down here, he's an Inter Milan fan. He's also Australian. And an Ange Postecoglou fan, so he started watching Celtic this year. So I was chatting to him the other day, and I said, we've got a boy here that you could do with the Inter Milan. And he goes, "Oh, you mean Jota?" And I'm like, "Oh." So he knew, like, straight away that was the player he went to. He knows who I'm talking about. Like, so if we can get Jota for $6.5 million, even if it is just the Jack Hendry thing where, oh yeah, if a Champions League team comes in, we'll let you go for 12. Fine. I'd rather he stayed, obviously, but if we can flip a profit, do the Jack Hendry thing.
Well, I can tell you as well, I've got a mate who's a Dortmund fan, and they're talking about him on all their social media pages too, after what he was like against Leverkusen. So German clubs are going to start looking at him too. So I'd love to keep Jota long term for 2-3 seasons or whatever, sign him permanently and keep him for another 2 years and then sell him on. But realistically, I think he could be the sort that we do a Jack Hendry, sign him and flip him.
Yep.
And then
if that 6 million fees being agreed, we could double that overnight, I think, for Jota.
And
definitely.
You look at Maeda, you sign him, he can play on that left wing to fill his spot next season. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking about signing players, somebody in the comments, Ed Janauskas, is talking about John Souttar. That was one that I wanted to talk about. I actually thought the two Heart centre backs were both amazing on Wednesday night. I thought we've struggled. Any team in the league really struggled to break. Excuse me. Any team in the league has struggled to get past them, and given that he's a free, I'd be having him in January for whatever Hearts want. If it's up to $1 million, no, do you know what, even if it's more than $1 million, I'd be taking him. I think John Souttar's an excellent player. I think Hatate is a good player. I think those two centre backs. I mean, look, I thought our two centre backs were great on Wednesday as well, but I think those two are really good as well, and I'd be looking at them as potential signings.
Here's a thought then. How about we sign Souttar and then loan him Murray? Get him games.
That would be ideal.
That'd be ideal. All the boxes.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that'd be ideal for me. I really do like John Souttar. He's a ball player as well as a good defender. There was one tackle. I'm actually not sure if it was Souttar or Rogic, but there was one where Rogic got played in and he took an amazing first touch to basically put himself through and goal. And then whichever Heart centre back it was just like got a foot in from nowhere from about 10 yards away. I don't know how he did it. Like, it was one of the best tackles I've ever seen. Do you remember the one I'm talking about? It was first half, and it came from the left wing. It must have been Jota. Played him in, and he just takes this great first touch, and the Heart centre back is way behind and just somehow manages to get his foot in the ball. Anyway, yeah, it really stood out for me in the game.
I had a slight issue. It's called Wet Christmas Party last night after the game, so I'm kind of like a little dusty on it. Anywho, John Curry has said, I'd be concerned about Souttar's injury record.
That is a concern now.
But he's over. He seems to be over it this year.
Yeah. Like, realistically, we've got guys like Mikey Johnson's got an injury record that probably matches. Let's be honest.
And also, Achilles is not the sort of thing you usually do twice. Like, I know he did
you do the other, you're good as gold.
But that's that. I mean, but yeah, he did the two of them. But like, you don't normally. It's not like a knee. It doesn't normally go again. If you know what I mean.
If it had been like his cruciate or something, I'd have been like, don't know. But like you said, Achilles injury is one that usually heals back stronger. So.
I'm not even sure if it heals back stronger so much as they just staple it onto your bone or whatever, so it can't snap again.
Sorry. What I mean is, like, it's not one of those ones that's going to keep coming back again and again, is it? You know?
No, not usually. No.
Yeah. So, you've got anything else? Any other things you want to add to the Carter Vickers or any other centre backs you reckon we should be looking at? Is there anyone in Japan, Liam?
No, not at the moment. Big strapping centre halves are a bit thin on the ground here, as you might imagine.
Not even any crazy Serbs over there, or any Norwegians and Swedish guys over there, or anything like that, or Brazilians.
Not at the moment. No, I mean the thing is that the Japanese league is it just finished. Well, the championship just finished last week, and the cup is now being played out. So we're in the kind of last stretches of the season. So any Japanese players that we're linked with now if we're going to sign any, those will be the ones that we're going to sign. I don't think anyone else is going to emerge in the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, there's no big centre backs over here. I think I'd cut it at Celtic. I keep bringing him up though. Trent Sainsbury, get him in.
Nah, the Australian League is the best team would probably beat Hearts, but would lose to Celtic or Rangers, and then the worst team would be Falkirk level, and that's all in the top flight.
Yep.
So there's not much to pick from over here.
Yep. Exactly. I've always said like the top 4 or 5 teams over here would probably be anywhere from say 4th down in the Scottish League. So it'll be interesting.
And the young players get picked off pretty quickly as well. We had that winger, I forgot his name now, but he went off to Germany, the one at Perth. Oh my God, his name's gone out of my head now. He could make it. Was it? Italiano, yeah, Jacob Italiano. He could actually make it, but he's in the Perth Glory team at 16 and he's gone by 18. So like,
there was only one player in the Australian League I wanted Celtic to sign, which was he's just ended up over here at Melbourne Victory from Perth. There was that winger. He was injured last year. And another mental blank. But yeah, it's there's not a lot. There's not a lot over here. There's good young. There's some good young kids out there at like Melbourne City and trying to remember the guy's name.
We've got Daniel Sturridge here in Perth. I went to the first game the other week and all the supporters were just like Sturridge. It was, and look, the guy just came off the plane. It was pretty bad. Like he came on and did a step over, had 4 touches, and I was like, "Yep, money well spent." Yeah, maybe he'll come good, but not yet.
All right, so we'll just jump on to the next thing. We'll just got to crack on a bit here. So, Scottish Cup draw. We're playing Alloa Athletic. Liam, your thoughts on the draw and who their manager is?
Who is their manager?
It's Barry Ferguson.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. Well, it's a good scalping is well due then. But no, the good draw for us. Good for Alloa. They'll probably hopefully get a few quid out of it. You like to see the wee teams benefit from these games.
They won't because it's in Alloa.
Ah, right. Is there no an option of them switching it to like a bigger stadium or something?
There is, yeah, but not there is, yeah, but will they? Probably not.
Aye, because the thing is, those Scottish Cup ties, we usually, even if they're at Celtic Park, it's usually about 15,000 to a crowd or something. And so, because they don't put them on the season book anymore, do they?
Not usually.
No. No, it's just, it's another game we need to play. It's a game we need to win. I hope it's a game that we take seriously because the Cup, to me, is an important part of the season. So let's make sure that we get the job done.
My main question, Jared, is what day of the week is it?
Would not have a clue.
It'll be Sunday, won't it?
Oh, it's going to be a Sunday, isn't it? That's why I'm asking.
It's the first game back after the break. I know that much.
Yeah, because our first game in the Sundays, or next Saturday game is supposed to be 29th of January. So I'm worried. Nah, it's not been scheduled yet. So
22nd of Jan.
Well, it's not got a time set to it, so that's just a placeholder. But yeah, so we could be going up to 29th of Jan without any flipping Saturday games, which is a fucking nightmare over here. Can't have a drink.
Yeah. 5 classes on a Monday. I could do without these late night Sunday games. Really could do without them.
I know.
Oh.
All right. So next thing we just wanted to quickly talk about. So there was the talk earlier in the week. Gavin Strachan was offered the opportunity to become Hartlepool United manager. Apparently he rejected it. Now that ties into the next thing I wanted to discuss there, which was there's also, first of all, we'll talk about that. Gavin Strachan, are you happy him and the laptop are staying, or do you think, would you have cared if he left? What's your thoughts, Sean?
I have no... Look, we've been playing well in the last few months, and given how we played last year, I'm not going to give Strachan the credit for that but I can also use it in mitigation of what happened last year, because Strachan got a lot of the blame for what happened last year, and given how well we've been doing recently, it's like, well, maybe it wasn't Strachan's fault then. I'm surprised that he chose to stay. If a manager job at any level is surely something that you should be going for, but either way, he stayed. So yeah, I don't know why. Why would he, does he know something about Hartlepool, that like they're a basket case or something, like not to do it? Honestly, I don't feel happy that he stayed, but also, yeah, I don't think I'd been upset if he left. Pretty neutral on it, I think.
You just don't really have a viewpoint because you wouldn't have cared either way. Let's be honest. There it is.
Oh look, if they'd been coming in like May, I would have like got a flight over and driven them down to Hartlepool. But now I've raised my expectations and an appreciation of Strachan to a neutral level.
I think though the fact that he's chosen to stay, and obviously he's had discussions with the club and they've said they see a role for him long term. That means that Ange has obviously found a use for him. I'm still not sure exactly what he does with that laptop, but whatever it is, clearly Ange has found a use for it. So I think that's a good thing, because if, as the media were trying to suggest during the summer, and we don't know if it's true or not because we're not inside Celtic, people were saying that Ange wasn't allowed to appoint his own staff. He was told he had to have Strachan and Kennedy as his backroom team. But, if that were true, I think Ange would have said, well, if he wants to go to Hartlepool, get him out the door and I'll get the guy I want in. But this would suggest to me that Ange is quite happy to keep Strachan around. So obviously he's found a use for him. I
would say that the two of them are taking direction from Postecoglou, and basically he's telling them what to do and they're doing it. He's
the boss at the end of the day, and if they don't like it, you either get on board or you get out the door. It's that simple. So yeah, I think more than anything, it's actually good to see. And don't hate me, I'm not a massive John Kennedy fan, but it's good to actually see him showing signs of life on the bench, like getting up and yelling out instructions to players, and they come off giving guys five, giving them a hug, or, celebrating goals and actually smiling. It's good to see that. Last year, it was just him sitting there just leering, all these little, looks out the side of the eyes and all these weird cameras. The body language experts come out, and it's good to see him back doing similar stuff that he used to do under Brendan Rodgers. I think there was a personality clash there between him and Lennon. Who knows what goes on behind the scenes? But in terms of Strachan, is his old man still doing some consultancy work for the club?
No, he's finished now. It was a 3-month thing.
Okay, well there goes that idea. I was going to say, he went and rung his old man and said, "I've been offered this. You going to look after me, or am I going?"
Yeah, well, he'll know what his dad has recommended to the club, so I'm sure that would have came into his thinking.
I don't know. I just think it's good that he's happy at Celtic and Celtic are happy with him, which shows that both parties are headed in the right direction. I think that's just all you can really conclude from it.
So in the comments, you've got Peter Caliero has said, any chance of getting John Souttar's younger brother Harry in the next window? It'd be great, out of our price range, and apparently I think he's been linked to Everton, if what I've heard is correct.
Didn't he just do his ACL in the last?
Yeah, he's out for 12 months anyway.
Yeah.
So he was being linked with Everton, and then he's out for 12 months. So yeah, but we won't be getting him in this window anyway. Maybe at a later date.
Yeah, now that he's an Australian international, he's getting. But that was how he got injured, playing for Australia.
Yeah. So now there's another comment here saying, do you not listen to Ange when he speaks? He's happy with them, so leave it at that. Why create all the negativity that shouldn't exist? He must be struggling for topics. No, we're not struggling for topics, Facebook user. The reason we discussed that is to tie into the next topic, which is John Hutchison has released at the end of his contract by Yokohama F. Marinos. at the end of their season. He was Ange's number 2 there before Ange come to Celtic. The reason we just discussed the other assistant coaches is because in the Australian media, we're seeing rumours of Hutchison being linked to coming into Celtic either this window or at the end of the season. So that's why we've just discussed what we've done, so we can come into this topic. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. Now, Liam, he was coaching in Japan. What do you know of the guy?
Not much, I'll be honest, because obviously I think Kevin Muscat is the manager at Yokohama now. Yeah. And Yokohama have not done particularly well since Ange left. They've become a kind of an also-ran in terms of challenging for the league. I mean, Kawasaki absolutely ran away with it this season. They were on top of everything. But it depends on which newspaper you read over here. Either he decided not to continue there, or he was released from his contract, i.e. he was fired. So I'm not really sure which one to go with.
I've got something right here in front of me, Liam, that says it'll be interesting to see what move Hutchison makes, as his contract won't be renewed by Marinos next season under the manager Kevin Muscat. So it looks like Muskie has gone, yeah, let's you can go, because I know those two didn't get along over here in the A-League.
All right. Okay.
Muscat was involved with Melbourne Victory. Hutchison was at Central Coast Mariners under Graham Arnold. Those two are both hard bastards on the pitch, and they didn't really get along. They kick lumps out of each other. So,
right, okay, right.
There's that whole side of it there. But yeah, I'm just putting two and two together. Ange just said he's looking for more appointments and bringing more people in. It makes a lot of sense. And Hutchison's got the family background over in Scotland as well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the rumours and everything we're seeing over here are true. If he goes, used to be at Seattle Sounders in the MLS as well as an assistant coach and assistant manager there. So he's got some experience. It'll be good for Ange to have, someone that he's got that relationship with over in Glasgow, but I think he's doing well enough without it.
Yeah, I think the biggest vacancy would be in someone in a kind of director role, and also from what my understanding is, the scouting department's still pretty thin, which is surprising because the latest rumour I heard is we're looking at someone in Iran or something like that. I'm not sure. But we've been linked with Japanese, Brazilians, Iranian players. We're still signing players from Dudu Dada in Israel. But by all accounts, we're pretty thin on the ground in the scouting department. We only signed one sports scientist to replace one that left. I feel like that department could do beefing up. So, do you demote John Kennedy if you're bringing in Hutchison? Or do you bring in Hutchison as a director of football?
What do you do with the rumours with the back to the Brendan Rodgers thing where the talk was they were going to put Kennedy as director of football with Rodgers there? Do they look at that path again? Now that you've got a Lorwell Patsy in as the interim CEO, do you put him in? Do you put Kennedy in there, and do you bring in Hutchison as assistant manager?
Yeah, or performance director, or whatever they call it in Manchester United these days. But yeah,
I think you'd have to be careful with that though, because it could create the perception that somehow whoever becomes that person would then outrank Ange, and Ange is the main man. And I think it needs to be abundantly clear that he calls the shots. It seems like the sort of guy who doesn't, he runs his team his way and doesn't really entertain the idea of like other people telling him how he should do his job. And quite rightly so. I think that's the best way to run a football team. So I don't see someone who was once his number 2 coming in and becoming director of football, which in a club hierarchy standpoint would possibly place him above Ange.
I don't think it necessarily does. Like, when you think about who was our last, was it Jock Brown? What was his role? Was it director of football? Was it?
No, he was
managing director. That's what it was. Managing director.
Aye.
And nobody saw him as having a higher rank than the managers who were the head coaches or whatever you call it.
Except Jock Brown, maybe he probably did.
Yeah, maybe. But I think as long as you have a compartmentalization of duties, I think it's fine. It can work. You just need to be very clear in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So we've got the game against Dundee United tomorrow. So, Liam, what are you hoping to see from the game? What starting lineup do you think we'll see?
I hope that we. Well, first of all, I hope we win because I think we saw that they gave the old Forces of Darkness a tough game up there earlier in the season. So
they beat them.
Aye, that's what I mean. So it's not an easy place to go. But I think it could be the same as the Hearts game. I think it could be 1 or 2-0 to Celtic. I think we'll edge it, but it will be a tricky one. I hope that we can get ahead in the game quite early and maybe take Kyogo off after an hour or so because he's looking a wee bit tired lately. And, hopefully if we can bring in more forwards in January, we can look at resting him for a game or two. Because what you got to remember as well is we're getting to the point now where he played 2/3 of the season in Japan, then played for us. So he's basically been playing football non-stop since February. And that's going to take a toll at some point, even someone who's got as much energy as he has.
Yeah, so realistically, he'd be coming to the end of his season, as you're saying there, Liam. So we've got to rotate. And does that mean bringing in Maeda will give us options? Yes. Does that mean we're going to see Giakoumakis? Hopefully. So there's going to be options there. But, yeah, for the game against Dundee United, I think injuries are going to stretch our depth. So realistically, what I'd love to see, I've mentioned him a few times, let's go back to the invincible treble season. Let's get out there and just get 2 or 3 goals up in the first 30 minutes and then go to cruise control the rest of the way. Ideally, perfect world.
Yeah, I think you're being very ambitious there, Jared.
Hey, I've got to be positive.
Yeah.
We're under orders from Facebook user to only be positive, apparently.
We do want one.
It's a Japan shirt, not a blue shirt. I'll just make that clear.
Okay. Yeah. But we drew 1-1 with them at Celtic Park. They've got the second best defensive record in the league. They only lost to Motherwell the other night because of that Tony Watt worldie of a goal. They've just appointed their centre back as their new club captain. They're really, really much an identity built around their defence, and they also get goals at set pieces, which is probably our weakest area of defending. I'd be very happy with a 1 each, but I can see this being a banana skin.
They've impressed me every time I've seen them this season, Dundee United, to be fair.
Yeah. Same here.
I still think we'll win, but like I say, I think it'll be another tight one.
I'm thinking 2-0 or 3-1. Ideally, I'd love for us to get those 3 early goals and just cruise, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think it'll be a 2-goal margin. We'll get it, but I think we'll grab one early, we'll grab one late, get the margin.
We'll never do that at Pittodrie, really. The three early goals.
Yeah, of course.
Or Easter Road, but we don't do it at Dundee. Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping it's a good game because, as you say, they are really backs to the wall. They're not backs to the wall, but they're really a tough team to break down, and they are full of gamesmanship as well. They will slow the game down. They will. What's your man's name in centre mid? He always goes down easy. I forgot his name. Peter Pollitt. Watch out for him diving. I guarantee you, he's going to go down when at least 4 or 5 fouls from going down easy.
Is that the guy who goes out and assaults people in Glasgow and gets arrested allegedly, or was that the guy who goes swimming with Mackay Stevens?
No, was that not Patton? I'm not sure. I'm not.
No, it's Patton. There you go. See,
yeah,
I'm not quite there.
Yeah.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll start to wrap up the pod. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you can, please give a donation to the link beneath here for St Mary's. It's a really valuable cause and something close to Celtic's heart, considering the history with the club. So, final thoughts, Liam?
Final thoughts. Yeah, look, first of all, thanks to ACSOM for arranging this, and everybody, if you've got a couple of quid, however small it might be, please just chuck it in the pot. You know, St Mary's is a great cause to support, one that is integral to the history of Celtic, in which the club themselves should be doing more to support. Secondly, I would just like to thank everybody who's been in touch in the last couple of weeks. I got married a couple of weeks ago, and messages of support literally from all over the world for me and my wife. So she doesn't do the social media thing, so on her behalf, I'd like to say thanks everybody for all your kind words in the last couple of weeks. Much appreciated.
Yep, just a quick shout out to John. Congratulations, Liam, while we're on it. But yeah, quick shout out to John, who's over in Scotland, can't be with us tonight, who's visiting Scotland for a family bereavement and has also contracted COVID while he's there, I believe. He's quite poorly at the moment, so couldn't join us tonight. But yep, hope you're okay, John.